How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I want to start by saying thank you for 1,000 subscribers. I just cannot believe how quickly the channel grew. I'm currently waiting patiently for community posts to be available for me so that I can get news out faster instead of having to cram it in these intro. Anyways, last Tuesday, I participated in and won my first audio combat. For those of you who don't know, audio combat is a show hosted by the YouTuber Eliminate. You are given 2 hours and a sample to work with, and that week it was the Minecraft theme. I will link his channel, the video of me winning, and the SoundCloud link of my song in the description. I put this FLP up on Patreon for fun, so join that if you want to check it out firsthand. Be sure to subscribe and let's get into this. Okay, so the first thing worth noting is that the tempo of this project is very, very slow. When I was making this, I was trying to find an appropriate tempo, and I was trying to speed it up to like 150 to kind of fit more of a garage kind of like standard, but I figured that going really, really slow couldn't hurt. Also, this is not organized. I know most of my videos have organized projects, but as you can see here, this one does not have any organization at all. So the song starts like this. Alright, so there are a few things going on here. Of course, the main sample, which if you didn't know was the Minecraft theme. Then I have this vinyl running underneath that. I have like some ambience of a bird chirping running just as some background ambience too. And then this really, really nice ambience that I got off of Splice. Getting into the actual instrumentation, I have a granulated version of the main sample that we were to use, playing in the back. This gave it kind of like a glitchy, like imperfect vibe that I wanted it to have, and I just used a fruity granulizer for this. I loaded it in and I just screwed around with some of the parameters and turned out with this. And then I think 2 measures into the intro, this respace kicks in. And this first layer is just a very simple serum patch. It's just a 16 voice saw with some low pass and literally no effects on it. And then below that I have this really thick sub bass. An important thing to note are the glide notes that I used here. It really gives an interesting cadence to the bass in my opinion. So altogether, the intro part sounds like this. So now moving into the, I guess, build, if you want to call it that, I have this really deep impact. I'll get into the exact samples that I used later, but I did render out my kick and snare pattern and filtered it in the build-up. Then I introduced this very subtle white noise riser. And then this was literally just something I did for fun. Like, this was actually the last thing I did, but I added the dirt cutting sound in the build-up. And lastly, right before the main verse, chorus, drop, whatever you want to call it, I have just this completely dry snare. So altogether, this is what the build sounded like. Okay, so now for the main verse, or I guess if you wanted to call it the drop, I have the main theme playing here. I'll give you a quick rundown of the effects. This is what it sounds like without the effects. And if I turn the effects on, so just to quickly run through this, I added an EQ that's cutting most of the lows and boosting just a small amount of the highs. I used Isotope's vinyl to create kind of this old vintage sound. You'll see as I go down the list of years, the quality decreases, and I kind of like that. I added a very small amount of pitch warping because I didn't really want it to get thrown out of key or anything like that. Then I added some fresh air to boost some of the highs and a little bit of the mid. And lastly, some fruity reverb. To complement the top line, I added this reversed version that gave it kind of a feeling like the Ted Ed intro. And like I said, that complemented the main line very, very well. The drums are very, very straightforward. I just have this really bassy kick and this kind of clacky snare. And the final drum pattern ended up sounding like this. Also in the verse, the snare does have a little bit of reverb on it. Then I laid a bunch of ambient underneath. I added a very heavily sidechained brass horn. And added this really fluttery downlifter. I added a sweep to transition to the next part nicely. And lastly, I added this bell pluck thing. To round off the verse, I added this sine pluck playing this arp. And I almost forgot about this string patch that I made. This was by far the hardest thing to make because the main sample is in a really, really weird key. This took about 8 different renditions to get right. Also, last thing to note, every 4 bars of the drop, I added this version of the sidechain that's really, really heavy. I do this a lot to make transitions a lot more impactful.